Lyle, we're going to start this one again. I want to thank everybody for coming into this. I want to thank Lyle Stokes and Catfish Weekly for making this available to people. It's a big deal, public service. I want to thank the Outdoor Campus and the Game Fish and Parks in the state of South Dakota for giving us a place to do this. We're using their equipment and their help today, and I just want to tell them thanks. They deserve a little bit of applause for this. The next seminar we're going to be covering is walleyes, actually walleyes simplified. We're not going to ask you to buy 5 tackle boxes on this to catch a couple walleyes. There's easier ways to do it and a lot less expensive. We're going to talk about presentation, location, and color selection. A lot of people don't really go into detail on the color selection. We're going to give you the variables, and then we're going to tell you just to pick these 3, and these 3. Okay? We'll save you a lot of time and energy. Anglers make a lot of mistakes. We don't want to do that a lot. You don't have time. It costs you money to go out in the water, and it takes your time. Okay? You want to do it right when you're there. You're the foundation for your success. You need the information. You need good information to make good decisions on the water, and hopefully you're going to get some of that here today. I want to tell you about what it's about here when you don't do that. If you don't make good decisions, well, let's just put it this way. I'm going to tell you about a trip I had up at Lake Vermilion in northern Minnesota 2 years ago where bad decisions happened. Okay, you could have simplified it. I hired a muskie guide at a resort up there. I hadn't been on the body of water before. I hired him for a 4-hour outing. I just wanted him to show me the lake, kind of lead me around a little bit, show me some areas. And he had bought a brand new, well, let's just say super GPS, right? You know, he could see everything, basically smell the fish in the water. $4,000 unit. We went out with that. And the first place we stopped was, if you're familiar with Lake Vermilion at all, it has 380 some little islands on it, really. And there was a wind coming out of the south, pushing waves through the spaces on these islands and creating nice currents, and fish were piling up on the shoulders of the islands. We spotted a big muskie. First place we stopped. Could see him in the sonar unit. My daughter was in the back, and he said, okay, you know, 2 o'clock, I want you to cast 50 feet out and let it sink. I'll tell you when to start reeling. And we did. We could see the lure hit, go down behind the fish, and so it hit the same level. He said, okay, reel, reel, reel. We did. We saw the fish turn, and that's really cool. Followed. We thought we had a hit because the lure and the fish just looked like they collided, but she didn't get hit. He must have just walked up to it and then swam up to it and bumped it. Anyway, after that, we left, and we started looking for more areas using this sonar, and that's all he was doing. We were looking at bays, we were looking at weed lines, we were looking at rock humps, we were looking at points. We never saw another big fish. Anybody tell me what he did wrong here? Bad decision. First place we stopped was on the shoulders of 2 islands where the wind was coming around, pushing bait fish around, white fish around. He never went back to the islands. He was trusting the depth finder to find the fish. Depth finders don't find fish. There's no button there that says find me fish. The only thing depth finders can do and sonars can do is show you fish that you point the transducer at. So you need to make the good decisions. Okay, let's clarify that right here. Always think more about presenting to the fish, okay, than catching the fish. If the fish can't find or locate your hook, bait, or lure, you not only will not get bit, you cannot get bit. You need to present to the fish. Fishing's a numbers game, and we'll explain that. Do not overcomplicate fishing for walleyes. A lot of people want you to, and if you want to spend a lot of money on fishing lures where you'll use 3 of them and not use the other 50, go ahead. But I wouldn't if I were you. You don't need to. Natural baits for walleyes, night crawlers, minnows, and leeches. Okay, that's the big 3 for naturals. If you're going to use an artificial, it's going to probably be a jig, or I would recommend it be a jig around here, and we'll get into the use of that in a little bit and how to use them. Locating walleyes on rivers and lakes. You got to remember that structures are not limited in size, okay, or their buildup. All right? Focus on structures with 3 or more connected elements. Walleyes, as a rule, are going to be hunting within 2 feet of the bottom. So as you make your presentations and pick your presentations, try to pick them to keep your bait in that target level, from the bottom to 2 feet up. Yes, they do suspend higher. We're talking the majority of the time, however, we're talking if you're going to place a $1 bet on where they are, they're going to be within 2 feet of the bottom. You'll win more dollars that way. Increasing current flow will increase feeding activity in our rivers, and also a good wind will increase feeding activity up on the lakes. Search out the dams on the small rivers, current breaks, current edges, mud lines on the reservoirs and lakes, incoming water, and outcropping points. Research your next outing. Now by that, what can the water offer you? What do you want? Do you want a trophy walleye? Do you want a couple of fryers? Or do you just really not care? Any answer is okay. But if you want a big walleye, you have to fish a body of water that has one. If you want a 10-pound walleye to put on the wall, you can't catch it in a body of water that doesn't have one. You got to look at it that way. If you want fryers, some lakes are stocked with a lot of fryers. They have a good population. You want to make sure you go there if that's what you're looking for. Otherwise, you're just going to be disappointed. Okay, that's just a fact. That's part of finding it. Where are they biting? What side of the lake? A lot of information can be, well, had prior to your trip. Talk to game fishing parks. Talk to the local bait shops. And I know some people will say, well, the bait shops, are they going to really tell you? The trick to talking to bait shops is if you talk to 2 or 3 bait shops and 2 of them give you the same information, it's probably accurate. But no bait shop is going to lie to you. Why would they? They want you to catch fish. They want you to use bait. They want you to come back. You know, they're not going to lie to you. If they give you bad information, it's simply because that's what a fisherman told them. All right? Try a couple bait shops, though. If they match up, it's probably right. Research your prior outing. What water can give you what you want? Check on depth and areas on the lake. Are they biting on the north end, the south end? Okay? You can find all this out if you just do a little. I start looking for information like on Wednesdays if I'm going fishing on Saturday. That way by Saturday I've checked the wind over a couple of days. I've got a couple different reports. I know where I want to go. I know what end of the lake I want to end up on. You know, it helps. High percentage element connections. This looks like a simple lakeshore, you know, but actually if you look at it and you let the body of water show you what there is, this is fairly complicated. Caught a nice fish here, had a couple others, but there's a reason the fish were here. This is on a lake where this is basically a pan. There's not a lot of big points. There's not channels. There's no islands. Weed lines are kind of iffy. But this shoreline, and especially if I can bring wind into this shoreline, okay? If you look at it down on the far end, you've got a steeper bank, okay? More of a natural bank, if you will. Right up in here, you've got kind of a buildup in sand, and you've also got a runoff area coming in. So what that's going to tell you is when you get a good amount of rain, you're going to have water running in right here off of this area. And you've got some rock buildup coming in here again. So you're going to have differences in water levels. You're going to have a difference in depth and a difference in bottom structure. Walleyes like gravel, they like big rocks. Okay? So right on the line where the 2 elements meet, that's the key. You have 2 elements that can concentrate these walleyes right here, but you don't know which one they're on. Are they on the rocks or are they on the gravel? Okay, if you go on this area or the connection line, you can put one bait into the rock area, one bait into the gravel area. Where'd you find them? We found most of our walleyes actually right on the line where the gravel's meeting the rock and the water in about 4 foot of water. That's where the fish were coming from. They were cruising the shoreline and they were cruising that ground line, rock line. So you have to look at what the water is offering. Now, if this would have a wind coming into it, that would obviously even pick it up more. Okay, what does wind do? It moves the algae, it moves the plankton over into the shoreline. It also, if it's shallow like this and it's a good wind, it will stir the bottom up. That breaks up the freshwater shrimp, leeches, little crawdads, whatever else there is. That brings in all the bait fish and the small walleyes. Big predators follow in too. But the thing you need to understand about wind is if it's windy today, let me put it this way. Say you have a south wind today. Should I go to the north end of the lake then? No. It takes 24, 36 hours for a wind to make any difference at all. If you've had it prior 2 days or 3 days of a south wind, then I would certainly consider structures on the north end of the lake before the other end of the lake, because the fish have moved over there. And here's the catch. Say I've had 2 or 3 days, so I decide I'm going to the north end because I've had that 2 or 3 days of south wind. But now this morning, the wind's out of the north or out of the west. So should I go to the south or the east? No, because those fish are not going to move immediately off of that north shore. The algae hasn't moved, the shrimp haven't moved, the bait fish haven't moved yet. It'll take 2 days for them to get off that north shore. That's why it's important to know what direction the wind has come off of for the last 2 or 3 days, okay? If you have just 1 day of wind, is that going to make a difference? Not really. The only way it would is if you're in an area, say you're fishing a bridge area or islands, and you have big waves beating in on the corners or the shoulders of those islands or the bridge points. Then right in that area, it can position fish because you have a big, strong current coming through there. Okay, but as far as like a north shoreline, south shoreline, you need 2 or 3 days of wind to really put some fish in there. If that's not the case, pick your structures because for other reasons. Like they said, well, they've been biting really good on the West Bay. Well, then I would go there. You know what I mean? You got to use your judgment on it. Pay attention to what the information gives you and what the weather's giving you. High percentage structure combinations. This is a great structure out on the Missouri River. Sorry about the blurry picture, but in this structure, this is one of those structures where there's going to be fish. There just is. But what are they sitting on? Okay, you've got a great combination. You've got great connection in the elements here. It's a beautiful structure. It's on the Missouri River, south of Chamberlain. This is on the east shoreline. Where this boat's sitting right here, we're right on the channel edge. Okay, and the channel edge is butting right up against this point. It's this rock island. It's deflecting and coming off back and bumping, hitting right into the edge of this point, and then going around. So what you got is going to have some wash coming. You can even see it. You've got some wash with current coming around here. You've got a deep channel. It's about 22 feet deep coming down here. You've got a 4-foot feeding platform. You've got a 5-foot feeding platform, and you have the main riverbank right here. So you've got a channel. You've got a point with connection to the mainland and the channel. You've got a rocky hump with a channel. You got 2 feeding platforms. There's going to be walleyes here on the Missouri River. Well, where are they? And here's where people make mistakes. They make a mistake, and they shouldn't. They get spoiled. They caught walleyes on a point yesterday or whenever, a year ago. So they go out here to the point and they fish walleyes because that's where they've caught them before, right? But what if the walleyes aren't there? This structure, there's no limit on the size of the structure. If it's connected, it is part of the structure. Just like the door to your house and the window to your house. It's a window and a door, but they're connected by walls, right? They could be here, they could be there. Anyway, they'll go to the point and they don't catch fish, so they leave. And we need to go find another point. Well, if you do that, in this case, you're walking away from 66% of your potential bites. Because you stopped here because there should be fish there. And you're right, there should be fish there, there will be fish there. But you fish one element that's really powerful, the point, but you have the channel, which is also very powerful, and you didn't check it. You have feeding platforms and rock structure right here that could be holding all kinds of fish on it. You didn't check it. You just walked away from 66% of your opportunity. So you can go drive around for an hour or half an hour and try to find another place, or you can finish this out and find where they are. And the benefit to that is not just that you catch fish here now in this depth and on this type of an element, or here, but now when you go look for another structure, you know what they're relating to today on the east shoreline of the river, they're relating to rock humps. Now you know what to look for. They're relating to the point. Now you know what to look for when you go to another structure, but don't leave until you find out. And you may not catch fish, but that's part of fishing. That's where the numbers game comes in, and I'll explain that in a little while. Just because you didn't catch fish means you did it wrong. A couple of different river elements, obviously current. This structure, I like using this one a lot because it's very visible. You have the outside bank, you have a shallow bank. Current channel is going to all come right around here. It butts right up on the face of this rock, and you can see the two distinct current lines where this current's coming down. You got the north current line, south current line, and the current is coming right around here. This is quiet water. This is quiet water. This is a dugout hole down here. This is dug out here. So you got all kinds of elements. It's a small structure, but it has good elements in it. It will hold fish. It won't hold a lot of fish because of the size. The mass is down. It's not a big element. But it's a good one, and there'll be half a dozen fish sitting in there someplace. So you want to try your current lines. You want to try the current break along this riprap. Quiet water at the base of the riprap. You could, depending on where you are, if on this side of the channel over here, you're going to be fishing this current line, your drop, your washout, and the riprap. If you're on this side, you're going to have to go to the current line right here on the outside and right here, and that's about it. If this is going to be shallow, you're going to want to be right on the inside of that channel. This is a big structure with a lot of power. You got a lot of water moving here. Water moves fish. You also have basically what I call a wall. The bait fish that are moving upstream, predator fish that are moving upstream, are not going to go past here today. They're going to come up here on this feeding platform that's about 6 feet deep, and they're going to hunt, and they're going to feed. This actually comes out and drops into the channel. It's 26 feet deep out here on this hole, the washout hole. So you got a deep hole, current lines, then you have a backwash coming out where it comes up out of the hole. Fish will sit right on the edge of that where stuff's coming to them. So you got the channel, the washout hole, the rock wall, the feeding platform. Where are they going to be? You don't know. As soon as you find them, though, you can zero in on them. You got to look at the water and what's it telling you. You just do. When you walk up to a structure, pull up in a boat to a structure, just stop and look at it for a couple minutes. Just stop and look at it. Where's the water moving? Is there any water moving? In fact, I'll tell you a story right now real quick. My daughter and I went fishing at a small body of water, and we pulled up, and I test my kids all the time on this stuff. We pulled up the parking ramp and looked out over the water, and I said, well, where do you want to go? You know? And she just sat there for, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes, and she said, I want to go over here, right over there. And, why? She said, because the water's moving. I said, what do you mean the water's moving? There's no wind, there's no current, it's just dead, it's calm. I said, yeah, but I saw a fish moving over there. And he said, there's nothing moving anywhere out here. This is all algae, that's moving over there. We want to go. We went over there, she took a walleye, a northern, and a cat. You know? And I don't know if we would have caught anything anywhere else, but that's just, the idea is to find something on that water that calls out to you, that says this is where you go. And that's what she did. And you can do that here too. It's real simple. Once you just start looking, if you start actually looking at the body of water and letting it decide instead of you, it gets real simple, real fast. You practice it 2 or 3 times and you got it. Let the water tell you. Colors. Oh, colors are great. Color can make a difference, but the forage, the season, the water conditions all dictate what will work the best. However, colors can enhance or detract from the visibility of your presentation. Walleyes don't see colors like we do. What's yellow to them is not necessarily yellow to us. It's just simply more visible to them. And there are certain colors, because of the way their eyes work, the way their actual vision functions, that certain colors are just more visible. Yellow to them, I mean, to you is not yellow to them, but it's more visible, it shows up. Just like on a sunny day, if you use white or black, that's the best. On a dark day, if you use white or black, but that's the two extremes. So you have contrast going both ways. It just shows up better. We're going to get into the details. What I choose on these, basically it's proven. It's more visible, but presentation's the key. Colors, when you may benefit from them and why. Clear sunny daylight, the white, pearl, and gold. Okay, this is where everything's bright and everything to the fish looks that way, like a minnow in the sun. Okay, it's just that type of thing. That's what these colors will represent. You get into from light to dark, okay? And these are lure jigs that I make for myself, but chartreuse, there's two chartreuses. There's a chartreuse green and a chartreuse yellow, and it is proven that they are the two most visible colors to walleyes, okay? But you also I want to put in a little bit of natural all the time, so I put in a little pearl white, okay? Not just plain white, but like a pearl white to get a little bit of shine, just like the scales off a fish, plus the color that's visible. This way the fish is getting two views. If he's coming in from behind or the side, he's going to get a little flash, but the most visible color is going to still stand out to him. But then it goes from the sunlight. Now this would be the water's getting questionable. So I have my chartreuse, and I have orange, which is more for darker or stained water. But I still want just a touch of flash of pearl color. Just a touch, so when it tips a certain way, just like when you tip a mirror, you get just a certain tip and you get a flash. When a fish is coming in to look at that, I want it to give him that, but I want it very visible as well. So from bright sunny to either murky, slightly stained, and dusk and dawn type of stuff, this is what you're looking at. The tail. Now, I don't use those all the time. I don't use them in the spring at all. The fish, usually the water around here is really clear, and I want it more natural, so I'll use a jig and a minnow. Make it as natural as I can because the water is real clear. And they may not be hitting that aggressive yet, so I don't want a great big mouthful for them where they're nipping tails. I want them to take the bait. In the fall, summer and fall, I'll go to a tail and a minnow, or a tail and a half a crawler, or a tail and a leech. And the color of the tail, I will try to match up with my jigs. Okay, low light, dark, stained, and murky. And here we go again from low light, dusk and dawn. We're going to go with the yellow chartreuse, bright, with just one coat of, what I do, one coat of pearl white over the top, just to give it just that little bit of light glint. But this is still the most visible. And then I'll go to that color plus an orange as we get darker water. This is going to be a murky type. And then if you get into dark or darkness at night where the sun's down and it's completely dark out, you're going to go to a little bit of pearl and the chartreuse and the orange. That's what I do. I don't know if you can buy jigs like this or not, but that's the way I build mine. The closer you can get to this, the better off you're going to be. Slight to moderate stain and low light, to sunny, moderate water stain, low light, and low light darkness. It just keeps going. Jigs the same way. If I was going to pick 3 colors, period, of jigs, this is it. This would be my light water, or my light water, medium water, darker water. If I was going to pick, because I don't fish a lot after dark, so I'm not going to go with the purple. And I don't fish below 50 foot in depth where there's no sunlight, so I'm not going to go with purple. That kind of thing, for me. If you're fishing after dark, an orange, chartreuse, and purple would be a good choice. But I don't do that a lot. So this would be my morning and afternoon with the sun up. This is, again, right in the middle, and this would be my stained water, or tannic water up in Canada. Same on the jigs, or the blades for the crawler harnesses and leech harnesses. Here. In tannic water, the gold, for some reason, I'm not sure why, like up in Canada, Lake Vermilion's tannic, Caliper's tannic, Big Pine's tannic, Lake of the Woods is tannic. The gold colors do better on that color water. I'm not sure why, but they just do. On the water around here, I would go with something like this, maybe, and these two for sure. And if I can't pick them on this one or this one, I'm going to go to the gold locally on a blade. And, you know, I'll be honest, I have probably, I don't know, 500 jigs, and I have 3 colors I use. You know, that's kind of like a fisherman's curse, I think. And I have, I don't know, 50 different colors of blades, and basically these 3 right here are what I will go to. That's my go-to. I'll use those 3 before I touch anything else. So, but I still have probably 500 blades too. That anybody wants extras, let me know. High percentage presentations: jigging, bottom bouncers, Lindy rigs, slip bobbers, crappie rigs, 3-ways. Plug pulling is a seminar in itself. All of these presentations basically have a time and a place to use, but you can catch big walleyes or big sawguys using them simple. Jigging for walleyes. Okay, we've already kind of talked about that. But in my opinion, most people overwork their jigs. They just do. There's 2 ways to present a jig that will catch a fish. I know, like, if you read magazines, you see some shows, they want, okay, we're going to, you know, jerk the jig, what do they call it? Jerking the jigs or tearing the jigs through the weeds, all this kind of stuff. I don't know. There's better ways to do it, guys. First off, if you take, you won't be able to see this, but if you take your jig or a sinker and you put it out on the ground in front of you, okay, and you lift your rod this far, that jig just jumped 5 feet. From there to there, that jig just jumped 5 feet, okay? So if that jig was on the bottom of the lake and you just did that, it just jumped 5 feet in front of that fish that was following. Okay, that's too much. If you do like some guys do, where they're literally tearing the jigs across, and you know, you're leaving a lot of fish behind. If you want to catch walleyes on jigs, okay, first off, all I'm going to do is 2 reels, then lift slow and drop. And that's exactly what happens. It takes up the slack, and I pick and I drop. That's it. Not jerk, not swim. If you've ever seen a minnow, if you've ever seen fish in the fish tank feeding on the bottom, or you watch a minnow feeding on the bottom, he goes like this, eats, goes like this, eats. He doesn't go like that. He just doesn't. Okay? Or I'm going to use a swim tail, like a little piece of plastic with a little, you know, twister tail type thing, and I'll work it more like an artificial lure, where I just a steady retrieve, try to keep it just touching the bottom and just reel a little bit, but just nice and slow. And the rubber tail will keep it from dropping back to the bottom too fast. And if it doesn't, take a match or a lighter, heat something up, heat your knife edge up, and run it across the bottom of the plastic grub to flatten it out, and that will slow the drop down, okay? So you can make it nice and slow. So the fish is just swimming along and he drops. Swim along and he drops. Jerking a jig is just not right. You can, sure, you can catch fish with anything. You can catch fish with a boat oar if you do it right, but I wouldn't recommend it, you know? So that's using the jigs, and I will use the twister tails in the fall and summer when the fish are a little more aggressive, and in the fall they're eating bigger baits. So the twister tail just kind of adds to that. And usually the water is a little discolored, so it makes it more visible. It has a bigger silhouette. In the spring, clear water, fish are a little sluggish, they're a little shy. You want to look like a minnow. Rigs. Okay, we talked about jigs already a little bit, so we won't go there. But these are simple to use, and 95% of the fish caught are going to be caught on one of these. That's all there is to it. Now, there's guys with big boats and all this, and I have nothing against that, and all the electronics. I like electronics too. However, fish don't care. They just don't. If you present a bait to the fish, and it's what he wants to eat, you're going to get a bite. Okay? Bottom bouncers. Nice and simple for trolling or drifting, using crawler harnesses, minnow harnesses, or just a long leader, plain hook, chartreuse bead, and a leech kind of thing. Mile an hour. It's not a fast presentation. About a mile an hour, 1.2 maybe. We'll catch a lot of walleyes. A nice drift speed. Don't outrun the fish. Your slip rig, more of a bottom rig type thing. The only way I'd probably get into that for walleyes is if I was fishing big suckers in the fall off the points like at Lake Madison and Thompson, Henry, that kind of thing, where you're off on the point, the fish are coming up at dusk onto the points, and they're on the bottom, they're on the gravel. This would work pretty good with a sucker because that sucker is going to be visible. And if you hook him through the anal pore or right ahead of the anal pore on the sucker, when he's down on the bottom and he's trying to swim, he's going to put his head up just like this. And that makes everything very visible, and the walleye can pick it up real nice and simple. And you've got some slack line in here, so that would work. The three-way. This is my trolling rig. Believe it or not, nobody does it. But what's the hardest part of trolling for walleyes? Keeping it at the right depth. The bottom of the lake bottom changes, the river bottom changes, current changes, speed changes, going around corners changes, everything changes your depth. Where do you want to be? About 2 foot off the bottom with an artificial lure. That's simple. That's where you want to be. Unless they're suspended. If you know that, that's a different story. Then you're talking planer boards and all kinds of crap. But we're just generally going out on the lakes around here and trolling. Three-way rig with a Mep spinner, believe it or not. Mep spinners are very light. You want a size 3, maybe a 4, not a 5 or 6. That's way too big for this, way too big for what you want to do. A 3 or a 4, the whole thing with the tail run about that big, just like a nice big minnow. The blades give you a whole bunch of flash. This sinker, you can run a different line down here. Say you got whatever 10, 15 pound main line, you got an 8 pound runner to your Mep spinner. You can run a 6 pound drop line if you're afraid of hanging up. But they do make a lot of snag proof sinkers now. Doesn't have to be just a teardrop like this. You can run a snag proof sinker if you want. You know, I would not do the bottom bouncers. People are like, well, just do the bottom bouncers. Well, no, because when you turn a corner with that bottom bouncer, it tips over. And you're going to drag your lure right down into the weeds or the mud or whatever. So do this, drop this down, depending on your depth. If you're, say these local lakes around here, you're in 12 foot of water. You know, I'd run probably 2.5 foot here, and I'd run 3.5 foot right here. If you feel like your lure is dropping down, put a foam peg float right here. And that will keep your lure up off the bottom if you feel that it's actually hanging up on the bottom for you. Control these at about 1.5 miles to 2 miles an hour. I wouldn't go any faster, but you want just enough. You can watch it on the side of the boat. When you drop that into the water and you're moving along, if the spinner itself just drops, you're not going fast enough. When you hit the right speed, that spinner will just ride up just like this. And that sinker will put you right on the bottom, and you just cruise along the deal, and your Mep spinner will be 1.5 to 2 feet off the bottom. And it'll stay there. If you go down or off a point, it's still going to stay there. If you go up a point, it's still going to stay there. It's perfect. It works. It costs nothing. You can buy a dozen Mep spinners for 20 bucks. Well, 30 bucks, you know. Buy 3 good colors. Buy a fistful of 1.5 ounce sinkers. A couple of 3-way swivels. Go troll. You'll catch walleyes just as good as everybody else, just as good as guys pulling $15 plugs. They will. And if you want to put a little quarter of a crawler on the back of it, go ahead. You know, just to add to it. The crappie rig. Oh, we'll talk about him in a second. Slip bobbers on the points in the summer. If you've got a boat or you're using waders, you can go out on the points where the points start dropping off into the main lake. If you can put a slip bobber out there about 6 foot down with a leech on it and just let it drift around, you'll catch walleyes at night. That's a nighttime thing on all the, like Lake Madison's notorious for that. You'll see boats out there on the points with their lights on. The crappie rig is the most misunderstood and underused piece of equipment there is. And it's a big mistake. And I'm going to show you why. If you look at this, you'd say, well, okay, I can cast that out and it's going to lay on the bottom, you know, like this, right? Well, that's not a big deal. That's not too exciting. But if you realize to start with that I can adjust where this is by simply pushing my line through these little red beads and sliding this up higher or down lower, this one up higher or down lower, okay? What's the deal with walleyes? Depth, right? You want it 2 feet off the bottom. This is where people freak out. I put a bobber on it. and I'm surprised people don't know about this, but I put a bobber on it. And then everybody goes, well, then it's just going to be floating around. No, it's not. You want your bait, you know, 8 inches, 1.5 foot off the bottom. There's your 2 minnows right there. When you cast this out, you have 1.5 ounces lead, and this little bobber, it drops to the bottom, just like the sinker should, but the bobber will hold it standing straight up on a lake. So your baits are sitting 8 inches off the bottom and 1.5 feet off the bottom. Well, if I'm fishing walleyes, that's where I want my 2 minnows, you know, and it's simple. It's cheap. You can buy these for under $3. You know, you can adjust the height. And the only thing I would do is get rid of the hooks. The hooks that you buy with crappie rigs, quite frankly, well, let's just say they aren't very good. But you can buy pre-snelled hooks that are good quality, okay, to where you aren't going to have them straightened out by a 2-pound walleye. I would replace the hooks, but that's still not going to cost you hardly anything. These don't snag up. They don't have trouble because they're not laying on the bottom. They're standing just like this in the lake. The only place you get in trouble with it is if there's a lot of waves and you're fishing like 3 foot of water, then this thing gets rocked around real bad and it won't work for you. But if you're in deeper water, you know, if you're in 10, 12 foot of water off a point or in a channel or whatever, waves aren't going to bother you at all. And it will stay there. And even if you get a little bit of rock on your bobber, that's just okay. Because all that's doing is moving your minnows around a little bit, you know. And most people just, they laugh when they see me put a bobber on these things. You will catch fish with this. And you don't have to just fish walleyes. Crappies, perch, cats, northerns, and muskies. One adjustment. In fact, my daughter's has the 8-pound line class world record IGFA muskie caught on this rig with 2 things we changed. We took one of these little hangers off and we left one hanger on and we moved it up to where it was about 2 foot off the bottom and we replaced the mono leader with a wire leader, obviously, and a 6-aught hook, and then we put a 6-ounce sucker or 6-inch sucker on it. And we used a bigger bobber because of the sucker. We didn't want him going down. We moved the bobber up a couple, like 18 inches, did a double wrap on it. This is off 2 feet. You had to put a little bit heavier sinker on it to get that bobber to go down because you don't want the bobber just floating around willy-nilly on the surface. And she had her first hit on a muskie in about, 12 minutes. And it broke the 8-pound line class world record. And that was on a crappie rig and a sucker. One of these. Took one hook off, though. You can't put 2 big suckers on here at the same time because they will swim around and get tangled up with each other. One big sucker, like 6, 8 inches. So that's how to use a crappie rig. And if people use more of that, we'd have a walleye population problem because you will catch them. It doesn't take skill. It doesn't take talent. You just know how to rig that up and where to put it if the fish are going to bite. If you can catch fish, you'll catch one. That's all there is to it. If you don't, you're just not in the right spot. It's the most misunderstood and underused rig there is, and they're cheap, and they work. And MEP spinners are about number 2. And I'm an old fisherman. You know, I'm about 70 years old now, and back in the day, the MEP spinners were it. We didn't cast jigs, we cast MEP spinners wading around in waders. We didn't troll plugs, we trolled MEP spinners and Johnson crawler harnesses with just a big silver blade and a long bullhead hook, basically, and caught walleyes. Walleyes aren't that smart, they're just fish guys. Just think about it. Make a good presentation. You put a worm, you put a leech, you put a minnow in front of a walleye. If he's hungry, he's going to hit it. Scent matters. We're about down to the end here. I know that walleye people don't think a lot about scent, but I want to tell people about this because if you're in a boat and you're handling your boat motor, you get gas on your fingers. You're on the shore, you put gas in your car on the way out there. I'm sure you've all, that if you fish walleyes, you've had walleyes come up and take the tail off a crawler. That's it. They come up and they take the tail and they don't come back. Well, there could be a reason for it. I know cat fishermen should know this too. They did a study. They used bass in a 100-gallon tank of water, one bass. They could put take a drop of water. This is big. We say this is 100 gallons. Here's a drop of water. We all know what that looks like. Just one drop of water. Now cut that drop of water into 200 pieces, literally, and drop it in the corner of this 100-gallon water. That bass knew it was there within 10 seconds. Within 10 seconds, he knew that was there. 1/200th of one drop in 100 gallons. So, all I'm going to say about the walleye fishermen and scent, a lot of other fishermen do consider scent, especially cat fishermen. A lot of people don't consider scent. Some bass fishermen do now quite a bit. They use something. If they don't put it on the lure, they rub their fingers with it, like fish oil, just to cover the gas, to cover the oil, to cover the cigarette, to cover the bologna, whatever. Okay, because the fish that will come and pick it up, all right, and test it, if something doesn't taste right, if he's not completely committed, he drops it. That's it, and doesn't come back. If you can take that 1/10 of 1 second away from that, like on a 100-yard dash, if I run a 9 point, well, say I run a 10 flat, that's amazing. I never could, but say I did. If somebody runs a 9.99, he still beat me, and it's just that much. This, in a lot of cases, is that much. It's that one nip, that one pick, that one take, and he drops it. That could be the problem. Why do you think when you're ice fishing, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I have, you're in your shack, you got a hole here and a hole here, literally, and this one catches all the fish. Why? Did you run your fingers down the line after you got gas? Did something get on the hook? Was that rod and reel sitting somewhere it shouldn't have been and got some scent on it? I don't know. But it costs me a lot of money and takes me a lot of time to go out and go fishing. I want that 1/10 of a second. I don't care if I'm fishing walleyes or bass or crappies or perch or cats or muskie or northerns or sturgeon or whatever I'm fishing. I want that 1/10 of a second. Because that next bite could be the fish you've been looking for your whole life, you know. And that scent is part of it. You need to consider it. It's an element that affects the water you're fishing for that day. So, that's it. I hope everybody got a little bit out of this. It's a good seminar. This stuff is proven. This isn't just my opinion. If you use this equipment, these techniques, you pay attention to it, you will catch walleyes. Thanks for coming in today. Lyle, thank you a bunch. Thanks for South Dakota Game Fish and Parks and the Outdoor Campus for the day. It's appreciated. And I hope everybody tuning in got something out of this. Have a good one.
Okay.